What's up, you guys? Michael Elefante here. Now, buying your first house or maybe your second or third house can be an extremely daunting task. Many of you watching may not even know where to start or what that process actually looks like. There are so many things to consider, and today I'd like to lay out an actual blueprint or a step-by-step guide that you guys can reference when buying a house. So I'm going to explain where to start, what the steps are throughout the process, all the way up to your close date. Over the past 2 years, my wife and I have purchased 4 houses and are actually in the process today of buying a 5th. So by now we have a pretty good understanding of all the steps and processes involved in actually purchasing a house. But I will never forget the first time we bought our house and how nerve-wracking it was. I mean, we had no idea what the process was. We didn't know how to work with agents, work with lenders, and anything of the sorts. So if you stick around to the end of this video, you guys should have a much better understanding and feel a lot more comfortable when the time does come to ultimately evaluate and buy your first house. Now, as for the steps I need to take in order to help grow this channel and hopefully provide valuable content for you guys all watching, if you don't mind, please hit the like button below. Believe it or not, it actually helps with the good old YouTube algorithm. So by hitting the like button, commenting, and certainly subscribing actually helps promote this channel and lets more and more people have the ability to click on and view it. So now that you guys have crushed the like button below and have also subscribed, hopefully, let's go ahead and jump right in and review the actual steps it takes to buy a house. Step number 1 is quite literally, are you ready? And I'm not just talking about emotionally. You're tired of paying rent, you want to buy a house, get in a place that you can love and have for many, many years, but are you ready financially? So first, let's review a few items that you guys need to understand and review before even going on Zillow or any other website and looking at houses that you may be interested in. Number 1 is your income. Do you have a steady paying job? Do you have a job with a base salary? Is it all commissions? Is it a mix of the two? Because lenders are ultimately going to look at your tax returns from the past few years and your income. They're going to ask for a few paychecks, and also they're going to look at your credit score and debt to income ratio. Now let's talk about credit score for a second, because this is ultimately a huge part of the first step to buying a home. It's something you guys can work on today in the months or years leading up to that first time purchase. So what that credit score actually tells the lender is how risky the loan is to lend you the money as the borrower. How likely are you to default on your loan based on that credit score? Now, if you can get your credit score above a 720, especially above a 740, you guys are going to be in great shape. Lenders will have no issues giving you a loan up to a certain loan amount. Now, for those that can get their credit score above, let's say a 760, lenders are going to be much more willing to give you a loan. And honestly, many lenders will be jumping up at the opportunity to give you a loan because they assume that you are going to be extremely trustworthy in paying that loan off, and they're going to be able to recoup their money essentially by investing in you as the borrower. Now, something that will help boost your credit score and also help when lenders are actually evaluating you as a borrower is to pay off all of your high interest debt. And this is primarily going to be around credit cards, among other things, but credit cards typically have the highest interest rate for personal debt, and that's the most common debt that a lot of younger people have. Again, if you're racking up credit card debt, work to pay that off so the balance is 0. And then in every month leading up to buying a house, make sure you pay off the statement balance in full every single month. Step number 2 is to evaluate what you can actually afford. So in order to figure out what purchase price that you guys are going to be most comfortable with and is within your budget, let's consider a few different things. First, you're going to need to know how much money you need actually in your possession to put down as a down payment, and also need to consider closing costs, which many people don't consider when first thinking, I just need maybe 10 or 20% down for a house. Now, for first-time home buyers, you can actually get an FHA loan that will allow you to put as little as 3 to 5% down on a house. And actually, in some cases for veterans, you can actually put as little as 0% down on a house. Now, these types of loans are backed by the federal government, so it provides some extra security for the banks or lending institutions that are ultimately providing that loan for you up front. Now, for the majority of other situations, if it's not your first time home purchase or if it's just a conventional loan, most lenders are going to require that you put down between 10 and 20%. Now, the down payment is not the only cost to consider out of pocket, because there are costs associated with closing on the loan. Now, what are closing costs? So a few items that are included in your closing costs are going to be the loan origination fee. So what it costs to actually originate the loan with the bank or the lender that you're using. You have to pay for an appraisal, you have to pay for an inspection, you have to pay title fees as well. Now, closing costs typically range between 1 and 4% of the actual purchase price of the home. So what I personally budget for is 2 to 3%, 3% to be conservative. So if the purchase price is $300,000, go ahead and budget for a $9,000 budget for closing costs. Now this could vary. You could work with the seller and actually negotiate them to contribute to your closing costs. But again, just to make sure you guys are prepared up front, plan to have around 3% of the purchase price of the house on top of the down payment. All right, now that we can figure out what we can afford out of pocket up front to obtain the loan and put down a down payment, cover closing costs, what can we actually afford monthly or our ongoing costs? Because it costs money each month in the form of a mortgage to pay off that loan. Now, what's included in a mortgage is principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and then private mortgage insurance too. Now, private mortgage insurance is typically required by the lender if you put less than 20% down. And this is just an insurance premium that you have to pay to basically account for the loan being riskier from the lender because they are lending you more money than they normally would. A good general rule of thumb is to try and keep the mortgage cost around 30% or less than 30% of your net income for the month. Now, I encourage you all to live in a house that you really, really love and adore and see yourself living for many years, but definitely try and keep the monthly cost below that 30% range of your net income every month. Because again, we do not want to be house poor. If we're house poor and 90% of our income is paying the mortgage, then we have little money to save or invest for our future. So again, try not to be house poor and try to keep that monthly expense a little bit lower than that 30% range. Step number 3 is to get pre-approved. Now, getting pre-approved quite literally means that the lender or lenders that you plan to work with for the home loan will actually give you a written pre-approval letter up to a certain dollar amount that you qualify for. So they will ask you questions about your income, probably ask you to provide a few documents as well, so you might as well go ahead and get those documents prepared. Now, if they don't ask you for these documents during the pre-approval process, they will most likely ask for them later, so it's better to just go ahead and have them prepared up front. Now, some of these documents include the following: 1 to 2 years of tax return statements, typically at least the past 2 months of your pay stubs from work. Sometimes they'll ask for a signed offer letter from the company that you work for. If you haven't been employed for more than a year or two, they're going to ask for this letter to ensure that you are getting paid what you say you're getting paid, especially if it's based on both your base salary and potential commissions or bonuses. They're going to more than likely ask for bank statements, so checking, savings accounts, or whatever other banks that you guys work with. They're going to ask you to provide at least 2 months of bank statements, sometimes more. And they're going to look for the cash inflows and the cash outflows every single month to review those statements and again, evaluate what you guys qualify for in a loan. So once you're pre-approved, the lender will send you the actual pre-approval letter. Having a pre-approval letter is important because once you receive it from the lender, you can provide it to the seller or the seller agents, and they will ultimately take you more seriously because they know that you're already qualified for the loan and you are ready to purchase the house. Step number 4 is to actually define what the criteria ultimately will be for the house you want to buy. So what are your must-haves and what are the nice-to-haves? Now, the must-haves may be based on location. Maybe you have a job where you have to be within a certain commute time to work. Maybe you're a nurse or a doctor working at a hospital, or maybe your kids need to attend a specific school system or school and you want to be within a certain distance to that. Those are all things to consider. Other must-haves are, if you have a dog and it's a must-have to have a backyard that's fenced in so you don't have to maybe walk them every time they need to go to the bathroom. Do you live in a location where there's inclement weather such as hailstorms? Maybe a must-have is having a garage or a carport to protect your car for crazy damages due to hail. How many bedrooms do you need? Do you have a family with several kids? Do you need 3, 4, 5 bedrooms? Or is it just you and your spouse? Maybe you just need a 1 bedroom. Or maybe you're looking to house hack and actually live in a place, either a duplex or a place with multiple bedrooms, and rent the rooms out to other people to help offset the monthly living costs. These are all things to consider. Now let's talk about the nice to have items. This is totally different for every single person, but just think about maybe modern appliances. That's a nice to have. Are they brand new? Is the house new? Does it have a fresh coat of paint? And you want to just move into a place that's basically turnkey, ready for you to live in? Or do you want to move into a place, maybe get it a little cheaper and have the money to update it how you want it? Does the place have updated light fixtures? Does it have a security system already built in? Does it have heated bathroom floors? Whatever floats your boat. What are the nice to have that aren't required for you to live in the place, but ultimately will help you pick and choose which house is perfect for you. Now, another thing to consider is the HOA. Is there an HOA or not an HOA? HOA stands for Homeowners Association, and typically these are in neighborhoods that have many houses and ultimately have shared spaces like landscaping, maybe they have a shared common area or maybe an outdoor pool that families can use. The HOA fee will also cover maintenance items, typically with sidewalks, streets, maybe landscaping. If there's a security group, if it's a larger neighborhood, it might cover security, maybe snow plowing if you're in an area that it snows a lot. So it's something to consider. A lot of people actually look for a place that doesn't have an HOA fee because this could range from anywhere from $50 to a month to maybe a few $100s a month. And other people would like the HOA because they want the community amenities, they want the security, they want the maintenance done, they don't want to have to worry about that. Step number 5 is to find an agent that you can work with. An agent, I'm referring to a real estate agent or a realtor. Now, while you don't have to work with a real estate agent, I'm pretty biased to working with them. One, because you don't have to pay them anything. They essentially work for you in your best interest for free. Their seller actually pays both the listing agent and the buyer's agent. They pay their commission. So you guys don't actually have to pay their commission in your closing costs. Now, like I said, the agent should be representing you and what's in your best interest. And also, a good agent should be able to be a great resource for you guys, not just in evaluating what homes may be a good fit for you, but they should be able to guide you through the actual home buying process step by step. So they should be a great resource to lean on and kind of hold your hand through the process if you're not familiar with it. Now, real estate agents can actually help narrow down the search for your home much quicker than you might be able to because they have access to the MLS, and then they can actually take the criteria that you provide them and ultimately narrow down a list, eliminating probably hundreds, if not thousands of homes to give you a nice list of maybe 10 to 30 to 50 properties. And then you could work with them to say, yep, nope, yep, no, and kind of work down that list and figure out which homes actually align in your best interest. Real estate agents, especially experienced ones in the particular market you're searching in, should be very in tune with the overall market. So they should have a much better understanding than you do of the actual market and different neighborhoods and different houses and what areas are growing, what areas to avoid based on your criteria. So it is ultimately, I think, very beneficial, and I would recommend you guys working with an experienced agent. Now, this leads us to step number 6, which is to actually put an offer in on a house. Now, the easiest way to do this is to submit a written offer and use your agent who can provide the actual paperwork for you that you can sign off on, and they will submit it on your behalf to the seller's agent, which ultimately the seller will review, and there's going to be a couple different things that can happen at this point. The seller can review your offer and either completely deny it, they could accept it, or more times than not, they will actually do a counter offer. So they will actually counter you with either a different selling price or different negotiating terms within the contract. Now, this can go back and forth multiple times. This has happened with me. I've gone back and forth with sellers actually 5 or 6 different times before either ultimately coming to a contract that we agree upon or ultimately saying, no, it's not going to work out for us, so we parted ways and moved on to the next opportunity. Now, something that you guys can do that may be able to set yourself apart if it's a competitive situation, if there's multiple buyer offers out there, is you can actually submit a handwritten note or a typed up note to the seller. Now, what's included in this note is a little bit of background on you, or maybe you and your spouse or your family, why you're interested in their home, what you love about it, what you love about the area or community, and why it's so important to you. And what this actually does is it may help you jump to the top of the list among the other buyers because it can create an emotional attachment for the actual seller themselves to say, you know, I can relate to this person on these different levels, and maybe they will ultimately accept your offer versus the other ones in front of them. Now, part of this offer letter and ultimately part of the contract that you will agree upon is something called earnest money. Now, earnest money is essentially a good faith deposit that you make to the seller, and the title company holds that money until the transaction is approved and completed. Now, earnest money is typically required to be deposited with the title company within a few days after their offer is accepted by the seller and you guys ultimately go under contract. Earnest money is typically between 1% to 2% of the actual purchase price of the house, but it's not lost money, it's not part of your closing costs, it actually goes towards the down payment of the house. Now, if the contract ultimately falls through due to some issues with the inspection or something like that, you will actually get the earnest money back. Now, once all the negotiation is done and the offer is officially accepted, this leads us to step number 7, which is you are officially under contract. So what happens next? First of all, something we just touched on, you will need to deposit the earnest money with the title company, typically in the form of a check or a cashier's check from the bank. Now, you will typically be under contract for about 30 to 45 days to the actual close date. So a few different things are going to happen during this period. Now, one of the first things that will take place in the first 15 or so days is you're going to work with the lender or your agent to figure out, a good inspector in the area. Now, the inspector will come in and perform what's called the home inspection. And they're ultimately going to come in, do a very, very detailed assessment that can take several hours of the entire house, everything from the crawl space to the roof and everything in between. After the inspection is complete, typically within 24 to 48 hours, you're going to receive a very, very detailed inspection report. Now, in this report are going to be basically all these different boxes that are going to be checked off, or maybe green, yellow, red. This is good, this might need some attention, and red is like this is broken, like the washing machine doesn't work, or there's a serious issue in the foundation. It needs to be addressed before you guys close. So this is when negotiation opens back up, and you can actually negotiate through your real estate agent with the seller and their agent on what items you either want them to fix or you want a credit from them. So basically they pay you towards your closing costs to compensate you so you can fix those issues once you actually close on the house. Now, I wouldn't be shy. You guys have nothing to lose. So in this inspection negotiation process, definitely ask for them to fix everything that you think is necessary. And hopefully they're either willing to fix it themselves or will pay you accordingly. Now, once you guys come to terms, you're probably going to sign an amendment to the contract based on those inspection requirements that you ask for. And then you're eventually going to have to order an appraisal, which your lender is more than likely going to do this on your behalf. So what they're going to do is call an appraiser to come out to your house, and they're just going to do a quick visual inspection of the house, the street, take a bunch of pictures. So this appraiser is going to take their notes and photos, go back to their office, and compare the actual quality of your house based on several different criteria. Think number of bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, how old the house is, and they're going to compare that with similar comparable properties, or comps for short, in the area. Now, the appraiser is eventually going to come to a conclusion and give you an estimated appraised value of your house based on those similar comps that also sold recently. Now, you can take this appraised value and then it could lead to further negotiation with the seller if it comes in appraised for less than what you guys went under contract for. But more times than not, it's going to be around that same value that they probably listed the house at in the first place. Now, your contract will more than likely be contingent based on the inspection and the appraisal. So if any major issues come up during the inspection period or the appraisal process, if you guys have a contract that is contingent on those items, then you can actually back out if any of those major issues don't come to a resolution with the seller. Now, at some point while you're under contract, before you close, your lender or loan officer is going to ask you for your homeowner's insurance documentation. So it's important to go ahead and start evaluating different homeowners insurance providers. Now, I do recommend going online or calling into several different homeowners insurance providers and getting your premiums priced out and see what the best option or best fit is for you. Now, once you have selected the best option, you can work with their insurance agent and actually provide the documentation to the lender, because they're going to need that information as you guys approach the closing date. Now, once you guys are basically in the last few days before your closing date, you're going to be cleared to close and you're going to move toward the final walkthrough. And this is your opportunity to go in and make sure that everything in the house is ready to go, and everything that you guys negotiated on that would be fixed by the seller, due to the inspection report, make sure all those items are taken care of. If it's a brand new house, you may be able to do what's called a blue tape walkthrough, which is just taking blue painter's tape and marking every single part of the house that may have something wrong with it, or maybe you just need some attention and you want them to, again, address it before you actually close. All right, so we're at step number 8, and it's time to close on the house. Now, once you are clear to close, the underwriters have reviewed all the documentation. Your lender is going to send out the CD, or what's also known as the closing disclosure. Now, this is going to have a bunch of information, all the numbers that are involved with the transaction. Definitely review this with your loan officer or the lender. Make sure you have a good understanding of the numbers. It's going to break down the interest rate. It's going to break down the principal and interest, the estimated taxes and insurance that you're going to be paying each month. If you're paying private mortgage insurance or PMI, that'll be included as well. Now, also included in the closing disclosure is going to be a very detailed breakdown of all the closing costs for both the seller and you as the buyer. So make sure you review all these different costs. It'll include the loan origination fees, it'll include the title fees, it'll include the appraisal fee. If the inspection wasn't paid for out of pocket, it'll include the inspection, all sorts of other things. Just make sure you review these numbers and they all make sense. Again, review it with your loan officer. They do this every single day. They should be able to walk you through the process step by step. Now, also included in the closing disclosure at the bottom of all these different numbers and figures is going to be the number that you ultimately have to wire to the title company to close on the house. So it's going to be what you owe left in your down payment on top of your earnest deposit and all the closing costs that you're responsible to bring to the table. So you go to the bank the day of closing or the day before closing and you just do a wire transfer in that exact amount down to the penny to the title company. You will then meet with the title company, typically at their office the same day that you make that wire transfer, and you'll sign off on all of the different documentation involved in the process, and it's going to be hundreds of pages, many signatures. Your hand's going to cramp up and get tired, but once you're done signing off and the transaction actually clears, you guys are officially the owner of the house. Congratulations, you've made it. So there's your step-by-step detailed guide to buying a house. Hopefully you guys found great value in this video. If you did and have not already, hit the like button, please do below. If you guys haven't subscribed and want to see similar content around investing, real estate, personal finance, things like that, do not forget to subscribe today, guys. I genuinely appreciate everybody that has subscribed to date. It really means a lot to me and helps grow this channel. So please do subscribe before you guys leave today, and hopefully we'll catch you guys in the next video.